I figured that I would do a build video, starting off with the Warriors, since I haven't done a build video in a long time, and a lot of things have changed, and there's a lot of things that I've learned, and I feel like are pretty important right now with the current meta, and as far as building tanks and stuff like that, and frontliners in this meta that I think I should share with you guys. And some of these things you guys probably already know, some of these things you may not know, so hopefully I can teach you guys a thing or two. And if not, I can't teach anything. Maybe you can just get a general guideline or a baseline for what builds should look like nowadays, as of October 7th. And this is the patch, I believe, or the next patch will be the final patch before Worlds. So the next patch is going to be what Worlds is going to be played on. So pretty important patch. And the builds are pretty much going to stay the same because no items are really changing besides Oni Hunter's Garb in the next patch. So I'm going to go through the Warriors and how to build them real quick. What's up, Tucker? What's up, Sprinkle? How are you? So we'll go through the Warriors. We're going to go through each type of warrior as well. The auto attack warriors, the ability based warriors, and kind of the in between warriors, because I think there are a few in between warriors. Starting out with the auto attack warriors because I think it's the easiest. I made a video recently on how to start all these characters, or at least options to start, because it really is just an option right now. I don't think there's a necessary way to build most characters or start most characters. However, with auto attack warriors, I think it's pretty simple. You just go tier 1 Berserker Shield, Chalice, talked about this in the video, and then teleport. And then you just rush your Berserker Shield. It did get nerfed last patch, but just by a little bit, I think, of attack speed. The full thing, if I can type it in. It's now 10% attack speed when it was 15% before, but really the reason you're buying this on your auto attack warriors is for the Destal type passive that you get with the AoEs. So that's why you're still going to be rushing this. So you're going to be rushing that, or go ahead and put it in the item tab. And then you're going to be going into either Warrior Tabi or Ninja Tabi, depending on the auto attack character that you are. On Osiris and Erlang, I would go Warrior Tabi, just because your auto attack cancels will hit harder, which is really important. And you also have really good scaling on your abilities on both those characters. And you don't really need the attack speed. Whereas with Bologna, you get actually a lot more benefit out of having more attack speed. And I'll talk about that in a second. So I would go Warrior Tabi on them. But on Bologna, I would go Ninja Tabi. Just because you're getting more procs of your block stance on your one, more healing off of your Scourge, and of course it will help with your Berserkers as well because you're going to be auto attacking more. And what it actually lets you or allows you to do is, instead of not one-shotting, but it takes about 4 autos to kill the back minions when you have Ninja Tabi, as opposed to 3 when you have Warrior Tabi. So you're going to get an extra proc of your Berserker Shield, which is nice. However, you can't go Warrior Tabi on Bologna, and it's perfectly fine. So this is where a lot of things have changed. There's a lot of triple guardian, or not triple guardian, but triple magical team comps going on right now. So your build is going to look a little bit different because there's the bulk of magical damage. So if they have any healing or they're running triple magical, then I would probably go Pestilence here. You can also go Runic Shield if you're really far ahead. However, I think you already do enough damage with the items in your build already, and plus you're going to be looking to go Void Shield here anyway. So that's going to be a lot of damage coming out of that. So you really want to get a dedicated magical defense item, especially if they have triple magical. And Pestilence is really good for that because it gives you 80 magical protection, which is a lot, especially as your third item. And then the 200 health is really nice. And then you're going to go into Urchin on these auto attack characters. This is pretty much everyone: Bologna, Erlang, Osiris, and possibly even Nike. Because even though she's not really an auto attack warrior, she does make good use of Berserker Shield, so I do like going that on her. And then a situational last item, it kind of depends. Spirit Robe is really good right now. This is one of the things that I feel like I've changed my mind on. I do think Spirit Robe is actually a really good item. Same with Magi's. And the reason I think both these items are actually pretty good and better than they were before is because right now, if you go max defense and health, you're actually not that tanky based on the percent pen items that hunters and junglers and even mages have with Obsidian Shard and Titan's Bane. So you want to look for defense and utility and survivability elsewhere. So both these items provide a couple of different things. So Spirit Robe provides you with the cooldown, which is going to help you get your abilities back up, which is going to help you survive. The prots, which is nice, but that's not the main thing you're buying it for. The crowd control reduction is a really big deal, and of course the passive is a super big deal because it's 15% damage mitigation, which cannot be countered by the percent pen items that carries are going right now. So that's why I've kind of changed my opinion about Spirit Robe. I mean, before it was a good item. It's always been a good item. I just like to go more health and defense before. But since these percent pen items, I mean, basically all season they've been really good. But these two items I think are actually risen in value a lot lately. And then of course Magi's 300 health is really nice, so that's going to help you be tanky along with the little bit of protections you get. But the main thing is the fact that you're immune to CC every 70 seconds. And depending on the enemy team comp, it may be really hard for them to proc this on you since you're frontline and you're going to be kind of difficult to deal with. It just depends on the enemy team comp, so you do have to think about this pickup a little bit more. However, in most games, it is a good pickup. And a lot of times in the current meta, you have to blow up a front line in order to get away into the team fight, especially at a high level. So if you go Magi's, it's really going to help kind of prevent the enemy team from doing that and blowing you up, because if they have to use this one dedicated CC, like an Athena taunt, to really set up for the rest of their team because nobody else has CC, then this Magi is going to really hard counter that. Unless they can proc it before the fight, it's going to be really difficult for them to get to the fight. And then, of course, late game, you can sell your Berserker's Shield for Nemean. It could be Midgardian. Usually, it's going to be a physical defense item. If it is triple magical, though, it just kind of depends a little bit. If it's triple magical and you're taking most of your health from magical damage, or it's triple magical but you're still like you're going on their Hunter or whatever, then Nemean's going to be a good option. But if you're not going on their Hunter and you're just taking a lot of magical damage, say they have a Freya and you're really trying to cancel her out or prevent her from doing things, then Bulwark of Hope is a good option. But this would be basically your auto attack build for any of the auto attack warriors. You want to be, you're still building a little bit bruiser as far as Berserker's Shield, your boots that are giving you damage, your Void Shield, which is a bruiser item, and you could even switch out Spirit Robe for something else. Like I said before, you may even have Remake Shield down here. However, with the auto attack warriors, you're going to be doing enough damage anyway, and at the late stages of the game, you're not going to be as useful if you're building an auto attack build, or not even an auto attack build, but a bruiser build, because you're just going to get blown up really quickly. So whereas opposed to ability base, where you may be able to build a little bit more bruiser because you can stay a little bit further away and use your abilities, whereas an auto attack where you have to be right in front of them to really get your damage off. So at late stages of the game, you want to have a pretty tanky build. So that's why it's going to be a little bit different and not as much hybrid as the ability based warrior build for the most part. So that's how you build your auto attack warriors right now, something along these lines. That's Bologna, Chalk, Erlang, maybe even Nike. We're going to go through the ability-based warriors real quick, at least the CDR-based ones. I like going Mage's Blessing on these characters now. They just changed the item, so it actually has power on it now, especially on a character like Wukong. Wukongs are really good with Mage's Blessing. Of course, going Boots 1 and then rushing your Boots once you're finished with that and teleporting back in with them. So then we're going to have, I'm just going to put a Warrior Tabby down here again. And then we're going to be going into Glad Shield. So it depends on the character. Some ability-based warriors actually aren't really good with Glad Shield, such as like Hercules and Amaterasu. That's not changed at all. So on those characters, you'd be going Breastplate here, but on a character like Wukong or Kokolin or Vamana or anything like that that can proc Gladiator Shield really well, Chalk, then you want to be going Gladiator Shield there. You actually can, on Wukong and some of these other characters that are going to be making good use of Gladiator Shield, go Soul Eater. This isn't as viable of a build because if they go Anti-Heal, it really hard counters your build. However, if you're ahead and you go Soul Eater and you can get this stacked really quickly, it's very, very hard for the enemy team to deal with if they do not have dedicated Anti-Heal. It almost makes you tankier in the fact that you sustain so much and do so much damage. It actually almost makes you more hard to deal with than actual tank items in this slot. So you can go Soul Eater there. That is an option. However, the more viable, I think, build, depending on the enemy team comp, if they have triple magical or you have to go your magical defense here because you're against a magical opponent in lane, or they have a magical jungler, or their mid is further ahead, you can go Genji's or even Oni Hunter's Garb on a character that makes really good use of the Genji's passive and the cooldown, such as like Wukong. I could go Genji's, but I can also go Oni Hunter's Garb, and Oni Hunter's Garb is a really good item. It's getting nerfed next patch. It's going to be 2100 gold, which is, I think, a pretty big deal. However, it's still going to be a good item because of the fact that, like I talked about before, it has % damage mitigation in its passive. So the fact that it gives you all these nice stats, 100 health, 60 magical prot, 30 MP5, and a really big deal is the 20% crowd control reduction. It gives you all those nice stats for a really cheap cost. And then on top of that, it gives you up to 9% damage mitigation in its passive, which is a big deal, like I said, just because percent pen items and stuff. So you want to find survivability through other ways, through other tools. So Oni Hunter's Garb is a really nice option as well. So you go Genji's or Oni's there. And then I will be going into my Eye of the Urchin. I like going Eye of the Urchin pretty much every game now. I think it's just a nice overall defense item, and it allows you to go more of these bruiser items as well because it gives you some dedicated defense on each side. So if I was going to do that, go Eye of the Urchin next, I'd probably go Genji's here just because I want a lot of CDR. If I have my Mage Blessing fully stacked, my Gladiator Shield, my Genjis, and I have a blue buff, I'm sitting at 40% CDR with basically 2 CDR items, okay? So I could do that, and then of course, like I said, just go Onis here. And if I have Onis here instead, then I'll have 30% when I have my Mage's Blessing. And then I'll be going into the Void Shield, because I do think a Void Shield is a really, really good item for soul laners right now, just because it gives you so much damage, but it also makes you really tanky because it's 50 or physical protection plus 150 health, which is pretty good for a bruiser item. And then whatever you need last item, like I said, Spirit Robe is a really good option right now. Mantle could be an option. Magi's Blessing, is that what it's called? Magi's Cloak, I think it's called now. So any of those options. Of course, you can sell your Gladiator Shield late game for Nemean, like I talked about before, or whatever you need. And for auto attack warriors, ability based warriors, whatever, everything in between, Masamune is still a viable option, especially if you're ahead. I think it's going to help a lot with that. For my head, Magi's I'll put in there. Midgardian, if they have a lot of auto attackers, maybe their jungler is an auto attacker as well. Midgardian's still a good item. 300 health and 40 physical protections will always be good base stats. And of course, the passive is going to be good against those characters that have to stick on you really hard. So that would be kind of the final build. And if you went Soldier instead here, then basically you would just go your magical defense next, then your Urchin, and then whatever you need last item. So that's the only thing that would change with that build. So that's how you build the ability-based warriors that can go Glad Shield. As far as the characters that can't go it, like Hercules and Amma, only difference really in their build is instead of going Glad Shield, you'll have the Warrior Tamite. Same start. You can go Mage Blessing. You can also go Guardian's Blessing or Warrior's Blessing, even if you're comfortable with that. It's just really whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you like playing. I don't think really one is much better than the other. It just kind of depends on how you play the game. And I talked about that in my starter video, how to start soul laners. So the only difference is you're going Breastplate there instead. You can still go Genjis. You can also go Onis here, which I think is fine because you have 20% CDR on Breastplate, right? So that's a lot of CDR to start the game. So you don't have to rush more CDR in that. On a character like Amma, I really like Genjis just because the passive proc can be really, really useful because it can allow you to get your one back up immediately, which I think is a pretty big deal because you can switch stances immediately. Because you basically heal and then 2 seconds later you switch back and you're healing again. So it's really useful on her. But the same thing, like I said before, you're going to be going basically the same build. It's just you have Breastplate instead. You're going to be going Void Shield. And then last item, probably a Spirit Robe just for that percent damage mitigation on the passive. But you can also go, even if you feel like you're doing enough damage, you can also go Magi's here because it's going to make it really hard for them to go on you because you have a Magi's Cloak that they have to proc, and you have this the CC damage mitigation passive from Spirit Robe and all this crowd control reduction on top of that. It's going to make it really hard for them to go on you. However, I think in most games you can get away with going Void Shield. It also depends on their team comp. If they're super magical heavy, then maybe you don't go Void Shield here. You go another magical defense item like Pestilence, or you want to do some damage, so maybe you go Ansile. I still think Ansile is a really good item, and I think in most games it gets good value in the passive. Especially like against like characters like Agni or characters that want to spam abilities, like they want to use one ability immediately follow up with another, which Agni obviously wants to do that. Hebo, stuff like that. It's gonna be really useful. So, and it'll also give you a lot of damage. 40 physical power is really, really nice for that. So basically, that's basically every character. There's some exceptions like Nike. I think can be built kind of both ways. She can be built as a ability-based warrior, but she can also be built as an auto attack warrior. It kind of depends on what you want to do. Usually with Nike, you just want to build a lot of health. So just make sure you're building a lot of health on her. Achilles kind of the same way. He can kind of be in between. He makes good use of CDR, but he also doesn't need CDR to do his job, and his auto attacks can hit really, really hard. So if you go a build that focuses more on the auto attacks as far as like Berserker's Shield and maybe just being more tanky and trying to stay in front of people, that's fine. But you can also go ability-based on Achilles and just kind of, dash around every like 5 seconds because it's a really short cooldown when you have CDR. So yeah, the only thing left that I really want to talk about is the relic choices these days. So it depends on the character you're playing. Like I said, your first relic will almost always inevitably be teleport. However, you do have a little bit of leeway in your second relic and what you want to pick up. It really just depends on the character you're playing. Most characters make really good use of blink nowadays. You just blink on their backline, blink on whoever, immediately start the fight. Even if you have an initiation, you can save your initiation or you can save your dash that you would usually use to get in front of them by going blink and just immediately starting a fight and immediately getting on somebody, because it can put a lot of pressure on pretty much any character. You can put a lot of pressure with using blink. So blink is usually the go-to relic. Sprint is still a really good item, just the immunity to slows. It's just really, really nice. And obviously move speed helps, but it just depends on if they have a lot of slows. Maybe your support wasn't able to go a sprint. He had to go like a phantom because they had an Odin cage and a shell or something along those lines, and you don't have a sprint. Usually you want to have at least one sprint on your team, so you will have to pick up the slack there and probably get a sprint. If they have a lot of healing, Curse Donk is an option. Thorns is still a really good option, especially if you're planning on going Nemean, and especially if they have a lot of auto attackers. If you notice that their ADC maybe is building crit early, then Thorns, you want to go Thorns because Thorns completely counters crit, and make sure you're building Nemean with it. The combo of Nemean plus Thorns gives a lot of value and a lot of damage to your front line. So just think about it. You don't just want to build Thorns like randomly. Maybe they're going full pen. They don't have a lot of auto attackers. You're not even building Nemean. Then you don't just want to randomly build Thorns because it's not as good as it used to be at all. But yeah, it's still definitely a viable option. And those are pretty much the only three that I go. Sometimes you could go Shell. It depends on the character. If you're playing with your backline a little bit more, say you're playing a warrior that wants to play with their backline a little bit more, such as like Nike or maybe even Guan Yu, then Shell's a viable option because that allows you to shell your teammates who are getting dove. But if you're building Shell and you're going on their backline, you're not going to make as good of use of it. Sunder is a viable option if you're kind of into that thing. But for the most part, these are going to be your three go-to second relics as a warrior in the solo lane meta today. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna see if you guys have any questions about the warrior builds. Maybe I said something wrong or you guys didn't like something I said, then go ahead and let me know now before I end the video. So if you guys have any questions in chat, feel free to ask. Try and answer it. I talked a lot about the starts in the starter video, obviously. Guardian's Blessing, super viable option. Mage's Blessing on your ability-based warriors, definitely a good option right now. Rushing Boots is still good, especially on these characters that have really good pressure early and can evade blue buffs and stuff like that. So, what do you think it'll take for the hammer items, Runeforge, Frostbound, etc., to come back into the meta? I think that the defense items have to be so good on their own that you don't need a million of them to actually live. That makes sense, because if you forego it and just go build like an item with like health and no protections, it's gonna be really hard for you to survive, even though you kind of die quickly anyway because of the print items in the game right now. Did I mention Guardian's Blessing? Yeah, I did. That's what I was talking about. How I talked about it in the other video, Ashes. Witchblade on ability-based warriors? Probably not. Witchblade doesn't give you enough, I don't think, unless you sell your boots for it and have like Masamune or something. How do you feel about Med? It's not really that good. Doesn't really provide what you need to for like a character, or at least a warrior that's diving the backline. Yeah, I have a question, especially when they have anti-heal. Yeah, I have a question. Why pick a warrior when you can play something better? That's true. Warriors right now are definitely worse than Guardians and even some mages in solo lanes. So, but you do need to know how to build them. Mystical Mail on Kokolin, I think that's a good option. However, I think if you just go a Glad Shield build on him and not worry about Mystical Mail, and not have to put all that gold into Mystical Mail, I think it's good. But Mystical Mail is still a viable option, especially against invisible characters. So if they have an invis character like Morgan, then think about going Mystical Mail. It increases the value of it a lot. And has Midgard Mail fallen out of meta? Yeah, it's got nerfed like 4 times, but it's still a good option. It just depends on what they're playing. It's just not a must-buy every game. What's up, Juga? You build Onis and Spirit's Robe? Yeah, building them both combined is really good because that's 19. No, it's not 19. It's actually 24% damage mitigation if you proc them at the same time. That's a lot of damage mitigation. So, like I said before, that stat is so good right now just because prots and health aren't as good as they used to be based on the pen items. Of Guardian's Blessing, yeah, it's really good. Is it ever worth to go Shidoruga with gods like Amma or Herc? Yeah, I think so. I actually do think so because it makes you so fast that's kind of your survivability and that your tankiness and the fact that you're just so fast that they can't ever catch you or lock you down. So that kind of makes you tankier than maybe an item that just give you prots and health would. So, well, I'm probably making a tier list, so Loki. So we'll talk about that another time. So anyway, thanks for asking your questions, chat. I hope this video was helpful. Hope you guys learned a thing or two about building warriors in the meta right now. A lot of things are the same, but a couple of things have changed. And you should have to think about it in a different way, I think, right now, especially with how, I don't want to say squishy because you're not squishy, but just how easily killable you are, especially in just 1 CC these days with the percent pen items and the things like Soul Reaver, Obsidian Shard, all that kind of stuff. So just think about that when you're building your characters, especially the warriors who aren't very good right now. And because one of the reasons they're not so good right now is because when they do die the back line, they kind of just get shredded and killed, like I just talked about before. But enough of me complaining. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you learned a thing or two, feel free to subscribe. I talk about Smite and like guides and everything basically in the solo lane all the time on my channel. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.